北美赛区 AKA。泛太平洋赛区 GS。 欧洲赛区 FN。 韩国赛区 STS。 日本赛区 FL。 中国大陆赛区请酒，6支战队集结完毕，精彩对决一触即发。
All right, we've got some players on stuff across the board. Got a chance to see all of our players here playing in Group A, Taylor. What do you think of that?
Love it. Look, it's great to see the players finally taking that stage. The intensity on their faces, they're feeling great. And you can also tell for some others, they're feeling comfortable. And I think that's the important thing, right? For some of these competitors, it's their first time on LAN. That is a big talking point. Yes, we're in the studio at the moment. Day 3. We're going to be in front of a sold-out stadium. The crowd is going to be loud. There's going to be a lot of pressure. This is valuable experience for the competitors currently sitting here today. Of course, though, for China, they did have, of course, their own lane event for the qualifiers, which was huge. Q9, ESG getting that experience. But I'm excited to see what they're going to be bringing to the table today.
Yeah, I got a chance to see Gold Silver there on main stage. We've been talking about him. We talk to him all the time outside of the competition as well. This is AKA, and of course, located in the U.S. here for our North American region. You get 60 MG on your screen. Hey, look, they got a lot of great personalities. I had a lot of fun interviewing these guys. We've talked to them a ton about their plans going into it. One of the interesting things about the North American teams, Articuno, namely one of the big ones here in North America for AKA, is that these teams, they don't have as designated, solidified, long-standing rosters as some of our other regions. These are teams that came together for DFI. They maybe didn't play together as much before DFI. A lot of roster changes going into the big qualification series, and it kind of all just worked out. So this trio in particular, Jan, namely being one of the best players in the game across the board, you've got to watch out for this roster, absolutely. But the big question in my mind is how much in the lab have they been? How much have they been working to get to a point where they can compete with some of the best teams out there?
Soft to strong into the roster that's looking to take the world by storm. Location coming out from Korea. Younger roster, given, of course, the age range on the very stage. E-Hit's going to be one that I'm watching out for, man. His name is great. Love it. He's going to be hitting the competition right in the mouth. And, of course, for this roster during the scrims yesterday that we had a chance to watch, they weren't doing too bad. In fact, they could very well be a front runner for this group.
Yeah, and I think, again, we can talk about the play styles of the different regions, and that's something that's really important to watch out for in our very first round. Some of these regions play extremely slow, play for loot. However, a team like Fallen is a team to watch out for, to play aggressive and frankly match the aggression of a team like Q9. This roster, extremely talented, longer standing, at least duo for this team. Now, they actually technically qualified for the finals with a different third, and Uzbishka came in as the substitute because one of their players couldn't make it out to LAN. It's actually worked out really well for him. Uzbishka's been really talented. All the scrims he's looked really well. Scrims yesterday, he looked really good. He was actually clutching up in a solo trio moment that we saw. You got to watch out for this Fallen roster. Absolutely an EU team that is to be reckoned with. They got second yesterday in the group stages. I can't imagine they're not a top 3 team making upper bracket today.
And they're fun to watch. Flowridge is going to be one of our older competitors at 29, but then you look at HR, and I believe he's, 19, right? So you've got a wide range, but this is the team to watch out for. Coming from the location of China, we're talking Q9. They were just behind ESG throughout their qualification to get to this very stage, but they are looking like the number 2 seed overall when it comes to the rest of the rosters. They were dominant in the scrims yesterday, and when I say dominant, I truly mean dominant.
Yeah, let me be very clear. We don't have to break down all the stats of scrims because they are just scrims.
I understand.
However, they did win in 4.
That's right.
And they won with the most loot value by like a mile.
Yeah.
One of the things I was talking about some of the players was that Q9 just played extremely aggressive. They knew they could win, so they took it to their competitors rather than waiting for the fights. Now, as we swing over to our Japan regional finalists, this is the one team coming out of Japan, and this is Finnel. Excited about this roster as well.
Yeah, Finnel's great. Hazmats. He's going to be the one that I'm truly watching out for. He is just a great player. He can be aggressive when need be, but he can also make the play calls that are valuable to his roster. Finnel, a team that can definitely take the world by storm. And again, different age ranges. You look at Uni, for example, 30 years old, right? That's the beautiful thing about Delta Force. You've got some competitors that are 19, you've got some that are 30, but that valuable experience, being a little bit older, I think is going to be valuable, especially for keeping your younger players at bay, keeping them composed when the pressure gets at an all-time high.
Yeah, that's actually a really good shout out. I think one of the things we've got to mention is that some of these players do have experience on LAN and some do not. We've got some people from Fallen that have some experience playing in Tier 2 esports and other titles. They talk about all the other games they've played coming into Delta Force. And then you've got some teams, again, back to Q9, that have played on LAN for Delta Force. I mean, that's a huge boon going into a competition of this scale, Taylor.
Yeah, it definitely is. Again, valuable, so valuable. It's a constant conversation amongst multiple esports. Who has LAN experience? Who doesn't? And Q9 and ESG are already ahead of the pack. But again, for a lot of these players, actually every player, they've had great accommodations. They've been able to practice consistently since they've been here. Most of them have been here maybe even closer to a week, right?
That's
so
right.
They've adjusted to the time zone, because you think about flying out, right? For some from like San Antonio, for example, right? Coming over to China, I mean, we're talking a 12-hour time difference. It takes a little bit of adjustment, but luckily the accommodations from the Delta Force team have been wonderful. And everybody's been gearing up and getting ready to go. We're shortly about to head in to our map number 1, of course, which is going to be on Zero Down. But so much at stake for the first ever Delta Force Invitational. The money is one thing, and the money is great. $500,000, are you kidding me? That is incredible. But also to become the first ever Delta Force Invitational champion, I mean, that's invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, this is the foundation for where Delta Force Esports is going to go. We've been setting that foundation for a while with our online competitions, from DFI, even to the Delta Force Global Leagues, getting to this point in multiple game modes. But here on a stage like this is just a studio. We're not even at the stadium yet.
I know.
It's unbelievable. And so you're totally right. This is the foundation. So the ego, or at least the prowess, to be able to say I'm one of the first Delta Force champions of the world here at Delta Force Invitational, absolutely that everybody's one of the things everybody's thinking about. Now, we got to talk about some of the stats on paper, because going into the competition, there was technically on paper seeding, and that's just based on traditional stats from the regional finals. So you kind of got the first place from each of the regional finals seeded, and then second place. So technically on paper, Q9 is kind of middle of the pack. But like we've been talking about, that's because they were in the same competition as ESG, who is also very dominant. And so when we talk to the players, they say that's a team to fear. But the other thing they say is that the aggressiveness of these China teams could come back to bite them. One of the things we'll see with Delta Force is that the game can be played a modicum of different ways. And I think absolutely that is going to be key here on LAN.
Let's talk about it, right? Aggression is a double-edged sword, all right? When it's going well, you are dominating your teams that you're pushing. But when it's not going well, you run the risk of your entire trio being eliminated, right? So you have to find that balance, and it's really, really easy to go over one edge to the extreme versus the other, and you got to find that balance. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And you're right, I did worry about that even watching the scrims, and I know I keep referencing scrims. Typically, I don't traditionally do that in the broadcast. I really don't. But watching Q9 again yesterday was just so powerful for me. And I think for them and their perspective, though, especially Mo, right, talking about him, the tip of the spear, the way that he pushes fights is incredible. Might even be making the play calls, which is just incredible being as aggressive as he is, right, being the tip of the spear as he was at least yesterday.
Yeah, and okay, so while we've got a moment, I think the players are readying up right now. It'll take a little bit to get their loadouts ready. Again, I want to explain a couple of the rules. Maybe you didn't watch our DFI regional finals. Maybe you didn't watch the qualification series. And I will say, one thing to remember about this is that this is going to feel kind of like pubs, except with the best players in the world all in the same lobby. It's a customs lobby. However, with these competitions, it plays like pubs in the sense that if you die, you lose your gear, right? So that is something to keep in mind. A highly aggressive playstyle can come back to bite you. So if you die, you lose all the gear you're bringing in. Of course, you can use that save box like you can in normal pubs. Now, the other thing that we didn't really mention as much in the match rules that I want to highlight now is that there is per round compensation. So if you go broke early, you're not going to be completely broke. You'll be able to buy something, but there is a boon with having a larger stash value. So the way that works is that every single kill you get is 400,000 Technic Alloy. That's every kill. You get a squad wipe, that's 1.2 mil. That's an insane amount of loot value just for kills. So it definitely rewards you for playing aggressive. There is also loser compensation is what it's called, funny enough, where if you don't extract for multiple rounds in a row, you will actually earn a little bit more cash. So there's a lot of kind of ways to earn cash for your loot value overall, which is your stash value. If you all at home have watched some of our other competitions, we're not tracking loot per game and that becomes your total. It is just your stash value. You can have a negative score based on not extracting and not getting any kills and getting wiped early. So something to watch out for. The other note though, Taylor, I really want to highlight for all of my sweats that have been watching all of our competition at home, I said it briefly, we have advanced a patch. So namely, talking to the competitors, these are the big things. Tempest is now in the mix. And I gotta highlight my guy Articuno from AKA. He is the self-proclaimed best Tempest player here. And maybe he's saying maybe the best Tempest player in the world. Okay. Certainly he thinks the best Tempest player in North America.
Well, you can only use it twice though, that's the thing. So he needs to use it where he feels it's gonna be the most impactful, most likely during those Mando Brick rounds, which arguably are the most important rounds, right? Because you could win if you get two of them. But also Senivas were very impactful throughout the North American and EU qualifiers. I'm curious if they're gonna be just as impactful here because other regions, for example, like China, don't really use Seniva as much, right? So there's different operator selections based upon the different locations that the competitors are at.
Yeah, and speaking of operators too, new patch means Aluru got his buff. Aluru is absolutely going to be one of the biggest operator choices today. I think most of the teams will be using him in some of those crucial rounds. It is fun to talk about the different operator comps because again, I said this at the top of the show, you can only use each operator twice as a team. And so obviously you got to pay attention to when are you going to use Luna to get that extra info? When are you going to use Stingers? Most people will use Stingers when they're maybe losing a couple rounds in a row. They save some money on some heals, and also you need a lot of smokes for maps like Space